Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Prabhupada, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol
Jai. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sanatan Dharma ki jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. So you can repeat after me. Tasmat Ashakta Satatam Karyam Karma Samachara Asakto Hi Acharam Karma Param Apnoti Purushaha. Tasmat, therefore, Ashakta, without attachment, Satatam, constantly, Karyam, as duty, Karma, work, Samachara, perform, Asakta, unattached, he, certainly, acharan, performing karma, param, sorry, 1 second. Acharam, performing karma. I'm sorry, performing karma, work, param, the supreme, apnati, achieves, purusha, a man. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Please repeat. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme is the personality of Godhead for the devotees and liberation for the impersonalists. A person, therefore, acting for Krishna or in Krishna consciousness under proper guidance and without attachment to the result of the work is certainly making progress toward the supreme goal of life. Arjuna is told that he should fight in the battle of Kurukshetra for the interest of Krishna, because Krishna wanted him to fight. To be a good man or a non-violent man is a personal attachment, but to act on behalf of the Supreme is to act without attachment for the result. That is the perfect action of the highest degree, recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Vedic rituals, like prescribed sacrifices, are performed for purification of impious activities that were performed in the field of sense gratification. But action in Krishna consciousness is transcendental to the reactions of good or evil work. A Krishna conscious person has no attachment for the result, but acts on behalf of Krishna alone. He engages in all kinds of activities, but is completely non-attached. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. So this is an extremely profound verse and purport, because basically it's saying how we can be engaged in activity without creating or performing any karma. Now, what does karma mean? There's three types of karma. There's karma, vikarma, and akarma. So karma means acting according to spiritual principles, but with attachment to the results. And vikarma is acting against it's a sinful activity, against the principles of karma, or against the principles of Sanatana Dharma. And akarma means acting without any reactions or karmic reactions. That's called akarma, or nice karma. So that is the life of a devotee. Life of a devotee learns to be engaged in akarma, in other words, activities that do not generate any reactions, either good or bad. Good and bad reactions both keep us in the material world. In other words, someone might do good things, but they're attached to receiving, let's say, honor. They're attached to being known as a good person, etc. And they're engaged in sense gratification. Now, you can have sense gratification in the mode of goodness, sense gratification in the mode of passion, and sense gratification in the mode of ignorance. All three will keep us attached to the material world. Of course, goodness is better than, lust and greed, or lust and ignorance. But still, that acting in the mode of goodness with attachment still keeps you attached to the material world and to the cycle of birth and death. Then, what is the solution for the human being? It is Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma, Sanatana means eternal, and Dharma means activities only for the pleasure of the Lord by his devotees, with love and devotion. Then there is no karmic reaction. It's called akarma, or nice karma. So that is an art, to always be engaged in acts without any karma, either good or bad. When you have karma that's either good or bad, you're still going to be, or will still be, anchored in the cycle of birth and death. It's only when we engage in transcendental acts of love and devotion that we are liberated by our activities that are done simply to please the Lord. Pleasing the Lord, meaning pleasing Radha and Krishna, or Sita and Ram. So this is something you have to learn. You can't guess. You have to be trained by genuine sadhus or good devotees on how to engage in akarma, or nice karma, activities that do not have good or bad results, but liberate you from the cycle of birth and death. So activities when you're working for good results so that you can have a better material life, although it's good, it still keeps you anchored in the cycle of birth and death. But activities that are meant only to please the Lord with love and devotion, that will liberate you eternally from the cycle of birth and death. And that's what is taught by Krishna to Arjuna. Arjuna was attached. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he was attached to family. And he had family on both sides, the Kauravas and the Kurus. So he was confused because either way, whether he won or lost, members of his family were going to die. So he became paralyzed. He was not able to act. And therefore Krishna had to preach to him and convince him that his desire not to fight was not because he was a nice guy, or not because he loved his relatives, the immediate relatives and the more distant relatives. It was because he did not see how he would be happy. So therefore, that was a selfish desire. Sometimes people are caught in a situation where they don't see one way or the other that they're going to be happy. So they get paralyzed. Paralyzed meaning not physically, but mentally. And they don't know what to do. So that was the condition of Arjuna. But he was trained to be a Kshatriya. And Kshatriyas are not supposed to get cold feet in the middle of the battlefield. They're supposed to be focused on what they're meant to do, and they're meant to kill. Kshatriyas are killers. But they only kill to protect the principles of Dharma. So, even though on both sides, or both armies, the Kurus and the others, they were both related to Arjuna, but as a Kshatriya, he was duty-bound to fight. Now that's what this verse is about. It says, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Well, to bring this down on the level of everyday life, a mother who has a baby has a great deal of responsibility. She has to comfort the baby, she has to feed the baby, she has to clean the poop of the baby, she has to dress the baby, she has to do so many things for the baby, right? She can't say, well, today I'm doing nothing. She can't say that. She has an absolute responsibility to care for her child, you see. So, in the same way, it doesn't matter whether you're a mother with a baby or you're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on one side or the other side. People are duty-bound to do things. It's just part of nature in the material world. Now, being duty-bound means that you actively and personally, let's say, without anybody forcing you, accepted responsibility. Just like sometimes there's a husband and wife, and then one or the other get upset and they want to get a divorce. And they find so many reasons why they want to get a divorce. But the point is, the husband and the wife, they were not forced to get married. No one put a gun to their head and say, you got to marry this man or you have to marry this woman. They voluntarily wanted to get married. So, therefore, they made a vow of fidelity, which means they made a vow never to be separated. Is it not? You make that vow when you get married, never to be separated. So people are identified by the vows that they make. And if you break a sacred vow, that's like, especially if you get married in the temple, in front of Radha and Krishna, Sita and Ram, and in front of the relatives and so forth, and later on you want to break that vow of marriage, that's a very sinful thing to do. And especially if after the marriage you have children also. So you have to be careful about making a vow, right? And this is something that should be taught to anyone who wants to get married. They should understand that you're going to be asked to make a vow of never being separated till death do us part. Do us part. That's what they say in English. That's what the priest or the officiating guru or whoever, at one point they're going to say, till death do you part. So it's a very severe vow. That means vow. It means that until you one or the other die, you'll always be together. Okay, so there's also the possibility of eternally being together. There are many couples that have led very serious spiritual life, following all the rules and regulations, and actually developing love for Radha and Krishna. And when they die, they both go back to Godhead for eternal life together in the spiritual world. This is possible. There are many, many couples in the spiritual world that are eternally together. So it's important not to make a vow if you're not serious about following it, because it'll lead to catastrophe in your life. But if you keep the vow, whether situations are good or bad, and actually Srila Prabhupada has always said, always make the best of a bad bargain. Always make the best of a bad bargain. So you might marry someone and it turns out that they're not exactly what you thought they were or whatever, but you have to make the best of it. Just like I knew one Indian lady, she was from Fiji, and her husband was a drunkard, and he ate meat. And she was a devotee, and a very good devotee. So she made a deal with her husband that he could only cook meat in the garage. And that but she would take care of the house, she would wash his clothes, do everything else, but he had to cook his meat in the garage and shouldn't eat in front of her. So she made a deal with him, and he agreed, and so they never parted. But if he had insisted on cooking in the house, where the smell of the meat would be there, and then she'd see him eating it and everything, she would have said, okay, well, I'm running away. I'm not going to keep this marriage, So he agreed, and they stayed married. Sometimes you have to make these types of decisions when there are, let's say, serious problems of performing sinful acts. It's a sinful act to eat meat. It means that somebody has killed the animal, and especially a cow. My God, don't ever eat a cow. The karmic reaction for eating a cow is so severe. You'll have to take as many births. Now, first of all, there's a person who kills the cow. There's a person who delivers the cow meat. There's a person who cuts the cow meat apart. And then there's a person who sells the cow. There's a person who buys the cow. There's a person who eats the cow. Every one of those people get severe karmic reactions. And they will, what are the karmic reactions? You will take birth as many times as there are hairs on the body of the cow. Have you ever counted the number of hairs on the body of a cow? There's a lot. You'll have to take birth every time and be slaughtered in the way that cow was slaughtered. So, if you really want to mess up your life for not only this life, but many more lifetimes after you die and take birth again, and die and then take birth again, eat a cow, and you will suffer not just in this lifetime, but many, many lifetimes. And every time you'll also be slaughtered like the cow. However, if you hear Vedic knowledge, just like you're hearing right now, and if you understand how serious it is to kill a cow and eat it, or let somebody else kill the cow and you buy the meat and eat it, you would never even touch it. It's because of ignorance that people do that. And they do it happily. They think it's really good thing. They're getting protein, but actually they're getting very bad karma, and they're going to suffer tremendously. So here it says in the purport, the Supreme is the personality of Godhead for the devotees and liberation for the impersonalists. So the impersonalists are people that don't believe God has a form, but they believe there is a type of liberation. They believe in liberation from the cycle of birth and death, but that liberation is impersonal. They have to deny their individuality to merge into the Brahman effulgence. So there are three levels of God realization: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So the Brahman realization is the eternal light that's emanating from the body of God. So the impersonalists, people who don't accept that God has a eternal spiritual body, who don't accept that God is a person, but they do accept that there's some kind of spiritual light called Brahman, they have to deny their individuality in order to merge into it. And how do they deny their individuality? By meditating. But meditating on what? Not on Krishna. Meditating on either nothing or the light, you say. So if you see these yogis who are meditating in the cave by themselves, and for years and years and years, they are trying to merge into what's called the Brahman effulgence, which is the lowest level of spiritual achievement. The problem with that is, as soon as they have even a little scent of desire, they fall down. It's very easy to fall down from the Brahman realization, even though it's a spiritual realization, even though the Brahman is the light that is emanating from the body of Krishna. But because they don't accept that Krishna is a person, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they remain impersonal, they will eventually fall down. So then there's the Paramatma realization, where it's more advanced because you believe that God is a person and he is in the heart of every living entity, and that one can be meditating on Paramatma on a regular basis. But more profound than even Paramatma realization is worshiping Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Bhagavan realization. So there are different levels. There's always different levels of understanding in life. So in spiritual life, there's the Brahman understanding, Paramatma understanding, and Bhagavan understanding. You can fall down very easily from Brahman understanding, but it's very difficult to fall down from Bhagavan. Why? Because Bhagavan is a person, and he has transcendental loving relationships with his devotees. And it's not only fun, it's ecstatic. It's full of love and devotion. That's what we should be aiming for, to build that relationship with Bhagavan or Krishna, and then be able to become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So here it says, the Supreme is the personality of Godhead for the devotees and liberation for the impersonalists. A person, therefore, acting for Krishna or in Krishna consciousness under proper guidance and without attachment to the result of the work is certainly making progress toward the supreme goal of life. Arjuna is told that he should fight in the battle of Kurukshetra for the interest of Krishna because Krishna wanted him to fight. To be a good man or a non-violent man is a personal attachment, but to act on behalf of the Supreme is to act without attachment for the result. That is the perfect action of the highest degree recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Vedic rituals, like prescribed sacrifices, are performed for purification of impious activities that were performed in the field of sense gratification. But action in Krishna consciousness is transcendental to the reactions of good or evil work. A Krishna conscious person has no attachment for the result, but acts on behalf of Krishna alone. He engages in all kinds of activities, but is completely non-attached. Well, this is the point that's difficult for people to understand, because everyone is attached. Family members, to working, to money, for fame, for sense gratification, or so forth. So all these attachments that people have precludes the opportunity, the ability for one to sincerely develop love and devotion for Krishna or God. If we become attached to Krishna, if we develop love for Krishna, then we become free from all karmic reactions. So there's karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma means one is performing good activities, but is still somewhat attached to the results. And vikarma means one is engaging in sinful activities and will suffer terribly for it. And akarma means one is engaged only in acts of love and devotion for Krishna, and there's no reaction, either good or bad. They're liberated. So we have to especially understand the difference between karma and akarma. Karma means acting in good ways, but with attachment still to the result. And akarma means acting, but with no attachment at all to anything in the material world, but yet one is attached to Krishna. Now, some people say, oh, But that's attachment. Yes, that is attachment, but when you're attached to Krishna, you become transcendental to the laws of material nature. That means that you are no longer trying to engage in sense gratification for yourself, but now you're working all the time to please the senses of Krishna. Just like you see the deity. Has any of you ever gone to a temple, like a Baha'i temple? Have any of you gone to a Baha'i? Okay, so when you walk in, what do you see? Nothing. Just a big hall, right? And there's a big hole also on the top, right? Because they are impersonalists. They don't believe God is a person, you see. And they don't, I don't know, do they do kirtans? I don't even think I'm not sure about it. I never spent a long period of time in a Baha'i temple to know if they did that. Baha'i people are nice, though. They act very nicely. But, they don't believe God is a person. So, but you walk in the temple here, you see Krishna. Now, Krishna has a body. It's a spiritual body. And to help us who are still somewhat blind to spiritual reality, Krishna can be represented as a deity. And now you can worship him and have a clear-cut, let's say, vision of his transcendental body. Now, the deity is not an idol. An idol is something that, sometimes you worship it, sometimes you don't, and so forth. But the deity, you have to worship it at least, how many times a day you worship the deity? 5 times a day? 6 times a day. Say 6. Arti 6 times a day. Food, prasadam 6 times a day. And changing the dresses twice a day. Yeah, that's a deity, right? And an idol, once a year, you do some puja. Yeah, if you want to see an idol, you go see the Gandhi statue outside the Bellevue Library. Once a year, they'll do a little bit of puja for him. So that's an idol, but a deity, 6 times a day, worship. Every time you have to offer food, you have to chant, change the dresses twice a day, and so forth. So we should be trained how to love God by worshiping the deity of Krishna. Now, if you are an impersonalist, you will try to do 2 things. One, either meditate on nothing or meditate on some light, But that's it, right? Now, how long can you do that? What do you think? How long you can just sit there and meditate on nothing? That will not be a long time. And meditate on some kind of light, maybe you'll be able to do it somewhat. But you see, why do they do that? Because they don't believe God is a person. Because of that, they meditate on light or they meditate on nothingness. See? And it's basically a waste of time. Do they make some spiritual advancement? Well, it depends how long they meditate. If they're meditating 24 hours a day, then they're not bothering anybody else. So they might make a little bit of spiritual advancement because they're not bothering anybody else with their hodgepodge philosophy. But if they just meditate a little bit and then try and convince other people to do that, then that's a real, I would say, type of abuse, human abuse. So it's important to understand that God is a person, and you can have a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He's a person. He's not an it. He's not light, although light is being emitted from his body, but that's one aspect. there's the Brahma Jyoti, there's Paramatma, and there's Bhagavan. So there's three different levels of realization of God. And when you come to Bhagavan realization, you'll become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. But what happens when you're liberated? That means you'll be serving Krishna 24 hours a day. It's not that, oh, now I'm liberated, I can sleep as much as I want. No. Now you're worshiping 24 hours a day. And you always have the name of Krishna on your lips and your mind. This Hare Krishna Maha Mantra means you're directly associating with Krishna, because Krishna and his name are not different. Just like I have a name, but I'm different than the name. In the case of Krishna, his name and Krishna himself are non-different. And therefore, when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, you're associating directly with Krishna. And you will realize it as time goes on, because Krishna will protect you, Krishna will give you knowledge, Krishna will speak to you in many different ways. Like one time I was a little bit confused about what I was going to do in my life. And this was before I was a devotee. And I started praying to God. Now, I didn't really know who God was. I was born a Christian, so I knew something about Jesus Christ, but he's the Son of God. Right? So I knew something about Jesus Christ, but I didn't know much about God, his Father. But if you know the Son, then you know something about the Father also, right? But so at one point, I was very confused in my life, and I just prayed to God, not knowing whether it was Jesus or the Father of Jesus or whatever. The Christians, they mix it all up nowadays. They say there's the Father, the Son, Father, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus is all three. Jesus, God the Father, and the Holy Spirit, so forth. So they mix it up. This, of course, Muslims reject this completely because they don't believe that. Have you ever seen a deity in a mosque? No way. No way. They don't accept that, and because they say you cannot make any statue or image of God. It's forbidden completely. So it's like the Baha'is, you walk into the mosque, and they have this one little place where you have to face toward Mecca, and then you pray toward where Mecca is. Either it's north or south of where you're living. But there's no deity. There's no deity at all. Okay, so there's different ways people worship, and there's different understandings. Like one time I was with a Muslim man, and I was saying that, do you believe God has a form? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you have a form. Do you believe God has a form? He said, no, of course not. I said, you just insulted God. He said, what do you mean I insulted God? I said, yeah, you just insulted God because you think you have something that God doesn't have. But God has everything you have and more. So you just, as they say in Turkish, you did kufur. Kufur means you insulted God. Yeah, so people are insulting God all the time, whether it's Christians or Muslims or Jews. You can see what's happening now. You have Israelis, they're killing, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. They've killed over 36,000 people in the last, 4 months, 5 months, right? Killed Palestinians. But that's not all. That type of killing has been going on for 70 years between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So they've killed many more than that over that time. But yet they're related. They all have the same father, Ibrahim, or Abraham. Both the Muslims and the Jews accept Abraham as the father of their religion. So here you have people who are related very closely, and they're killing each other. Now you have the same thing between the Ukrainians and the Russians. Ukrainians are Orthodox Christians, Russians are Orthodox Christians, and they're killing each other. You see. And you have the same thing all over the world. You know, the people that are related to each other, they're killing each other. So that means they have no real understanding of God. They have no real understanding of what you would call Sanatan Dharma. They're just interested in politics. Now, what are politics? Politics are based on friends and enemies. So as soon as you become a politician, you have friends and enemies, right? Republicans, bad. Democrats, good, you see. So as soon as people become political, this bifurcation of society, this separation of people starts, right? And people kill each other based on their identification of political or different types of bodily identifications. The real reason why people kill each other is because they identify with the body instead of identifying with the soul. When you identify with the body, someone will say, well, I am Muslim. Another person will say, I am Christian. Another person will say, I am atheist. Another person will say, I am this, I am that. And eventually, they'll even kill each other. You see? So whenever you identify with the body, you have made a big mistake, and every decision you make in your life will be wrong. Every decision. Right? What's the right decision? I'm the eternal servant of Krishna, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life engaged in devotional service for the Lord with love and devotion. Now you became a real person. Now you will not kill your brother or your relative or your compatriot or whatever. You work for the welfare of all people because you recognize that your God is in the heart of everybody. Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. So that universal perception of the presence of Krishna in the heart of every living entity makes you a real person, a person who is not going to kill people. Just like you see nowadays, young kids, they're very frustrated, and somehow or other they get a gun and they go and they shoot other kids. Why is that? Because they've never been taught that God is in their heart and God is in the heart of other living entities. They never learned that. And because of that, they're not afraid of God, or they have no interest in God. And they won't go to church, they won't do this, they won't do that. They're completely in ignorance. And therefore, in ignorance, they can commit all kinds of horrible acts. So, to educate children today, the first education should be Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They should learn who Krishna is. The parents should teach them. And they should take them to the temple on a regular basis, or the church, or the synagogue, or the mosque. And the children should bow down before the image of God. Of course, if you're Baha'i, there's no image. A Muslim is also there. There's no image in there. temples, but they still they do the Dandavat anyway, you know. So here we have different ways of worshiping Krishna. Haribol. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishnavistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Smarta Namaste Sasarate Guru Vali Bhatani Nivasesis. So this verse today, which is the 3rd chapter, 19th verse, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activity, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Now this is a very, very profound verse. How is it possible to work without attachment? Well, to work without attachment means you are attached to Krishna, but not to anything or anyone material. So that means you work without attachment then. If you work with attachment to family, friends, girlfriend, boyfriend, this thing, that one, that is not going to get you very far spiritually. In fact, it helps you to go away from spirituality. But if you're very attached to Krishna and not attached to anything material, number one, or to any material concept of other people, in other words, you really understand that Krishna is in the heart of every living entity, whether they are Muslim or they're Christian or they're atheists or whatever. Now you're not attached. But as soon as you get attached, well, we're Christians, you know, and if you don't become a Christian, you're going to hell. A lot of Christians say that. Have you ever encountered that? Yeah. And, you know, it's a little scary because, you know, they try and scare you like that. That's nonsense. That's complete nonsense. On the other hand, how can you say that they're preaching love? They're not preaching love. They're preaching hate. And they're trying to scare people. So, and especially Hindus, oh my God. The Christians, they hate Hindus. You don't know. I mean, you maybe you never experienced it. I did. Christians hate Hindus much worse than other religions because we have deities and we bow down to them, right? And that for Christians is like, and Muslims also, the same as the Christians. They think it's like completely wrong, right? So, when we are able to see through all these false narratives and understand that Krishna is not Hindu, he is not Muslim, he is not Christian, he is not Jew, he is not anything like that. He's the God of everyone. And he does not, Krishna does not differentiate between this one and that one. They're all his children. What he appreciates is, instead of seeing all differences, we see the similarities. And the similarity is we should all worship Krishna with love and devotion, whether you call him Allah, or you call him Adonai, or you call him God, etc. They should be worshipped with love and devotion. And the more you learn who God is, the better. Because that way, you become much more spiritually inclined. So Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. So therefore, as a genuine lover of God, we cannot differentiate this one from that one. There's some universal family, and that's the family of Krishna or God. We're all in the same family. We all come from Krishna originally, so we're all related. You know, it's not that, oh, you have a different father, and you have a different this, and you have a different that. No, we all have the same Father. It's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, you may realize that maybe there's other names. Some people call him Allah, some people call him Jesus, whatever. Jesus, of course, is the Son of God. So his father is Krishna. And that's why there's Jesus Christ. Jesus is his first name, but his family name is Christ. Christ, Christos, Krishna. You see? Christ, Christos, Krishna. Actually, it's Christ, Christos, Krishna, or Krishna. Wait a minute, let me get it straight. Christ, it's Christos, Krishna, Christos, Krishna, Christos, Krishna, Krishna. Anyway, it's the same thing. You end up with Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we should stop all this nonsense where you have you have Jews right now killing Palestinians, thousands and thousands of children, of women, men. They're killing them like anything. But yet they're related. They both accept Abraham as their father. And they both accept God. They have different names for God, but it's the same. There's only one God. So you see how things get confused by politics. Why? Because politics is all about friends and enemies. So if you're a politician, at the same time you're a religionist, everything's going to be mixed up. And it's going to be a disaster, as we're seeing today. You have to decide not to be political, but to be a genuine devotee of Krishna and see that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God of all living entities, not just human beings also, of all living entities. See? And that's who he is, actually. He's the origin of everything. That means the birds, the bees, the bugs, and the human beings, and the elephants, and so forth. Okay, so this verse is very nice. It says again, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme. So, acting out of duty. What is our real duty in life? It's to love Krishna and serve Krishna. And because Krishna is the father of all living entities, once we develop that love and devotion for Krishna, we should share it with everybody. So that is our lesson today. To love Krishna and share that love with everybody that we meet. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions? Any questions? Or comments? Or confessions? No, that's you don't have to confess anything. That's it.
So when the elections are happening, the political
Elections,
yeah.
politics,
Yes.
friends and enemies.
Yeah. So basically when one has to vote, choose a right candidate.
Yeah.
So how can you vote and still be not political and not attached?
Don't vote.
So is that the right option to not vote?
Yeah. If they're both demons, both sides are demons, why would you vote for one or the other? They're eating meat. Both sides are eating meat. Both sides are supporting killing cows. Both sides are, let's say, not interested in seriously worshiping God. If they were seriously worshiping God, they wouldn't be antagonistic toward each other. You see? So that way, as soon as you identify yourself as a Republican or a Democrat, therefore there's friends and enemies. I say. And it gets really bad, especially whenever there's an election period. It gets really bad. You know? So you don't want to be caught in a situation like that. And anyway, if both candidates are meat eaters and they support like Crazy Joe, Joe Biden, he's supporting the Israelis killing, performing genocide against the Palestinians. You know, and the United States is supporting the genocide by giving tremendous amount of material of weapons, bombs, and fighter planes, and all those things to the Israelis to kill the Palestinians. What is their purpose? Well, this has been going on for like over 70 years because of Zionism. The Zionists want to either kick out all the Palestinians from what they call Erez, what do you call the Greater Israel. The Greater Israel is not Israel that you see today. It's much bigger than that, and they want to kick all the Palestinians out and have this much bigger Israel that they believe God wanted them to have. So they get God involved in it too. And that's why you see what's happening now. And then the United States is sending Israel all kinds of weapons, more and more lethal weapons. See? And the Israelis are using them on the Palestinians. And you know what it's like to see. Here's a little boy here, right? If he gets hit by shrapnel or bullets or something like that, the rest of his life, he won't have an arm. He might die, first of all, or he might not have an arm. He might not have a leg. He might be blinded. There are a lot of little kids now in the Middle East, especially in Palestine. They're wounded for life, right? And it's not stopping; it's getting worse and worse, And the whole point is to throw all the Palestinians out of their where they've been living for years, and that there should only be Israel. So this is mean. It's nasty. It's supported completely by the United States, completely. So what can you do? Well, we should not, associate with people like that, because all human beings have a right to live. They're not meant to be slaughtered. And we should respect life. We should not say, well, certain people deserve to live, other people deserve to die. Of course, there are criminals. Okay, they can be put in jail for life, or they can be put in jail. But this killing, constant killing, it's getting worse and worse now. And the United States is supporting it and making it and giving all the bombs. You know what kind of bombs they give? They give bombs that can blow up an entire city area, completely flatten it. Very, very lethal bombs. And they're delivering them to the Palestinians. I mean, to the Israelis, to use on the Palestinians. And they're supplying so many, jets with bombs on them. So this is a big business, bombs. And the United States is doing that. So because of that, this country gets a bad karma. And it's you can see it. There's a lot of degradation of the let's say, goodness of the people in this country now, because they're supporting, especially because they're supporting this massacre that's going on. It's a genocide that's going on with the Palestinians. Now, are the Palestinians saints? No, they're not saints. But they don't deserve, especially the little kids, they don't deserve to be bombed. You know how frightening it is for children to be bombed? And the bomb goes off, it's so frightening. And then the rest of their life, and then they lose their parents, and now they're an orphan. What are they going to do? It's horrible. And that's happening every day now in Palestine. Okay, so we will pray for their protection by Krishna, and we should not ignore what's going on. Maybe we can't do much, but at least we should not ignore it, and we should pray that all sides become spiritually elevated to stop this type of slaughter. And it's slaughter. It's terrible slaughter. Okay, so I think we'll stop right there, unless there are other questions. Hare Krishna. Oh boy, it's Srila Prabhupada ki jai.